So this tweet showing what a rubber stamp ASIP was before RFK dumped the farmer shills shows you that he's doing a great job for Trump with MAHA in the administration. Not as far-reaching for a lot of fundamentalists in health freedom, but it could be worse. And I think as he gets science fixed, it's going to indirectly help us in the long run. But in this tab, we see that the Senate is stripping out the HSA provisions. And for those of you who don't know what HSAs are, about 30 million people have them. They're tax advantage accounts to build funds for out-of-pocket health expenses. And it basically empowers patients to have the discretion on what health procedures they want. And that's going to be increasingly important as groups like ours educate people about real health, which doesn't always come from a pharma pill. But I share this just because MAHA and Health Freedom, and for folks who don't know who are new to us, National Health Federation is the oldest org for this movement going back to the 1950s. So we've been involved with all of the big fights over the decades. But the frustration is there with Congress on MAHA. And then, some friends of ours at the Patient First Coalition, at whose conference in DC, Scott and I are speaking, and we're exhibiting with Philip Haddad. If he's on the Zoom, he can talk about that. But we hope you go. But they're doing great work right now exposing Medicaid going to millionaires. But is Medicaid being reformed or cut in Congress? No, it's just so easily demagogued by the other side, and who cares about bankrupting future generations? Now, Chip Roy is going to be coming here soon, but Justin is going to start off. Justin, we met, and for the states, it might be even worse. As we put in the invitation, if we scroll down to the agenda for Justin's part of the presentation, we see that global biotech cronies have been passing bills in the states to immunize themselves from liability for insecticide harm. I use the word insecticide because, as Scott corrects us from his work at the Codex, food trade standards making body infected by the biotech interest. It's not just pesticides, it's all insects which are harmed, and those poisons harm all of us. So obviously, biotech wants to escape liability for harming humans. But one of Justin's members in that link there from Missouri is opposing this, which is a nice change since Republicans basically have carried biotech's water for years. But now, because of COVID, they're awakening to health freedom. And this is evidence that they're doing the right thing. And Justin is running that State Freedom Caucus, just like he used to run the House Freedom Caucus that included good conservatives like Chip Roy. Now, not only are states giving in to biotech interests for their bottom line concerns, but in Massachusetts, they're about to lose their vaccine exemption for religious reasons. That's occurring right now. So maybe the deep state swamp in this link at the bottom of the invitation received today is worse in the 50 states. We met Justin by way of his Arizona colleague, Sue Ann Edmiston, who was our staff friend when her boss, Mr. Gomert, introduced the National Informed Consent Exemption Act, which we hope gets reintroduced by Ms. Miller. And we'll discuss that with our vaccine attorney, Greg Glazer, in next month's July 18th Zoom, along with a fired public health officer from the military. So it'll be more vaccine focused next month. With that, Justin, take it away and tell us about our frustration with MAHA in the States and what the opportunities are.
So thank you, Charles. Thank you all. It's mostly bad news if you looked on the spreadsheet, but there are a lot of opportunities. Just to give a brief background for State Freedom Caucus Network, we're the state project of the House Freedom Caucus. We have over 185 legislators in Freedom Caucuses in 13 states across the country, from the Mountain West all the way out to liberal bastions like Illinois and Maryland. So we have eyes on and boots on the ground throughout the legislative session for every conceivable policy fight, ranging from single issue siloed MAHA topics to fighting against the big industry bear attacks in Georgia, Missouri, Idaho, and elsewhere, to dealing with the regular budget politics. And one of the I want to take sort of a good whatever feedback you can give me about bills that you want to see run, but highlight a few areas of success and ongoing struggle, and then suggest a place where the MAHA movement can push in a way that will make the swamps in the 50 states and in DC increasingly uncomfortable. So what's the good news? The first, I'll introduce you to a colleague of mine that's here with me in Wyoming today, Chairwoman Rachel Rodriguez-Williams of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, who also runs the relevant committee to push MAHA bills through, and she's been a great ally in that. But the good news is that your grassroots at the state levels do an excellent job flooding the zone in capitals when bills are introduced right now for what I'll call food safety. So whether this is like bans on sugary beverages, or if it is about chemical precursors, all of that has a good concentrated push, and I'd say in the red state legislatures, a pretty good chance of passing. There is a weakening, a good weakening of the reflex that somehow the government shouldn't be involved in setting limitations on how the government doles out money, which is sort of a mentality shift even from the Tea Party days that works to our advantage. I would say that any red state governor, 2026, if you haven't had success yet, marshal up your forces, find legislative allies to introduce those bills and push them, because this is, from my time in politics, there's never been a better moment to get those pieces through. Now, there is a flip side of this that is very unfortunate, which is there was a moment immediately post-COVID where the politics around vaccine usage and demands and restrictions was ripe for reform, and that window appears to have closed in terms of like the regular establishment forces that run institutions, even in places like South Carolina, where they're trying to go through a massive reorg in public health that not only gives sort of more authority to a single individual outside of the scope of what the legislature can affect, but didn't do anything to sort of change the underlying regulations around vaccine use or demands or restrictions from it. It's fallen off the agenda. It doesn't have to be this way. There's lingering rage over COVID, and we are fortunate to have RFK Jr. And his team in DC putting that back into the public consciousness. But I would suggest, again, from a organizing, from a messaging strategy, that the window is only going to be open for a brief period of time, where it's in sort of the public conversation in state legislatures, while they have like their own issues tend to be very responsive to what's in the air. So if your group is ready to go on those issues, ready to find allies, if you can look at our 13 states, and I can make sure that we find somebody to carry it for you. This might be the only moment that we have before there's a next presidential cycle where we can make headway, because the downside of DC, and Chairman or Representative Roy will discuss this in great depth and with great frustration, is that there will be some bogging down of the process there. And it has everything to do with like how money moves through the system, and nothing to do necessarily with the policy, except that the people that move the money are not necessarily in favor of it. So perfect moment for anything on the non-vaccine health related to push. You have legislatures in a very responsive posture, and even governors that are dead set against our shared goals, willing to acquiesce to them in many cases, to provide political cover for themselves, and a brief window where we can get changes on vaccine regulations, and not just push back against the creep that you're seeing in some of the blue states, but to plow new ground too. If I could make one other sort of pitch out what's possible and where the movement needs to fight long term, and where, at least from my vantage point, it largely hasn't, and this is a collective problem in sort of grassroots organizing. But before I introduce you, Rachel, is what ultimately matters the most in these policies is not changing the policies, but refusing the money that allow, like, whether it's Fed money or from the state level, that allows them to be promulgated and enforced. MAHA needs to fight on state and federal budgets. We need to stop the money, or refuse at the state level the money from moving through the system with the kind of ties that our political enemies use to keep us chained up. For those of you that operate in state politics, you'll understand the refrain, like, oh, we can do all these things, but don't touch the budget. We have to get that passed. This isn't Washington, D.C. That's right, it isn't. You don't have to take the Fed money and all its strings. You can protect your citizens and their unique individual way of life and their desires. You just have to say no to the money. And if the problems are coming from specific state offices, you can defund them or cut them or change their regulatory powers within budgets and within budget notes. It's something that we are, all freedom caucuses from federal on down to, as I said, where we operate in blue states, are obsessive over budgets, because that is where the power lies and where the challenge is most needed. And after I introduce you to Rachel, I'm happy to answer any specific questions or take feedback about policies that you want. But this conversation is one I'd like to have with as many of you as possible in collective or individual settings. I'll come wherever I need to, sort of with specifics relative to your state as to what needs to go and what the problems are. Because if we have a constant problem that isn't subject to the warp and weft of what's hot in politics, or what's being focused on by the Trump administration, it's that the money's always moving, and we need to collectively engage to make that a contested space every single time that a budget's introduced. So before, Charles, any questions, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to turn the camera over to to Rachel to introduce and just have her give a rundown of what she's able to run through her committee in Wyoming, and then I'll take the mic back.
Sure.
Hello, I'm Representative Rachel Rodriguez-Williams, and I serve in the Wyoming House of Representatives. I'm the current chairman of the Freedom Caucus, and then also the chairman of the House Labor, Health, and Social Services Committee. I had the pleasure of attending the MAHA briefing at the White House, and I can tell you I'm pretty enthusiastic about bringing some of the policy recommendations from Secretary Kennedy back to our state. We have done some work in our committee. Last session, we passed a bill out of our committee to request a SNAP waiver from the federal government to prevent benefits from being used to purchase sugary substances like snacks and drinks. Unfortunately, that bill was killed by the Senate leadership when it entered into their chamber. Since then, we are out of session, but I have drafted a letter to Governor Gordon asking him to make the move to request the SNAP waiver from the government. And we definitely need some support to get him on board with the MAHA movement. In our committee, we also held 2 educational hearings on the use of psychotropic drugs in children and the criminal justice system, and we'll be working on legislation inspired by those presentations. In our state, we'd like to report better on toxicology to gain a better understanding of the impact of SSRIs and other mind-altering drugs on criminal offenders. Wyoming also had in the House, we passed a measure to end cloud seeding and atmospheric engineering. And again, this effort was halted when it entered the other chamber, the Senate chamber. So our efforts are ongoing. We're excited about future policy recommendations from the MAHA level at the federal level, and bringing them into Wyoming.
Thank you. Again, probably, Charles, would suggest as we wait for Rep. Roy, and because I have a deadline too, happy to take questions now. But again, to repeat key takeaways, it can move a lot in the health space right now. We have a window to attack the vaccine regulators, and we must begin a sustained attack on the lifeblood of our political opponents, which is the money that moves through the system that helps to promulgate all these regulations.
Excellent. Scott, should I take the first question, I guess?
Yeah, you go ahead. You do
Okay.
it. Thanks.
We'll want to talk to you and follow up later about budget-related MAHA efforts, because that's a unique perspective I haven't heard discussed much, Justin. So we'll table that for now. Maybe it'll come up in Q&A. Definitely, that makes sense that would have potential. I'm glad you mentioned that the effort to take vaccines off the agenda is facing pushback from the movement, which got Trump elected. And RFK, as I said at the beginning, may fix it indirectly by fixing science. As long as you have real placebos, and if they get those unvaxxed comparison studies, which show where the chronic disease occurs, and that's among the vaccinated, not the unvaccinated. The food ingredients thing is important, but I don't think too many MAHA folks are that excited about that in comparison to the real chronic disease aggravators. Doesn't mean we oppose the SNAP efforts. You got to start somewhere, and build a movement with low-hanging fruit. We get that. Representative Rachel Rodriguez, congratulations on getting geoengineering limits passed in the state. I think people thought that was the farthest front of the MAHA movement, but the fact that half the states have bills on that is outright amazing. I think you would agree with that. Doesn't surprise any of us on the difficulty of getting those limits passed. I think we all know, however, that you do need a federal fix part adjacent to that, because you can't do everything on the state level. One of the reasons I invited Chip Roy to this event is that he tweeted an openness to hearing RFK explain the danger of wireless radiation. And we've already had a lot of conservative movement, Justin, over the decades against smart meters. They want the old analog meters that was taken off my house, which don't emit dangerous wireless radiation. And thankfully, RFK is working with governors to kick the smartphones out of the schools. So at least we're starting with the low-hanging fruit there, which is our kids and the smartphones in the schools. I'll start with that question. Now that Chip Roy has tweeted an openness to hearing RFK explain the danger of wireless radiation, and now that it's included in the report on reversing chronic disease, Republicans are resistant to this. They're mostly, ignorant of it because it's a new issue. Have you heard anything, Ms. Rodriguez or Justin, on maybe opting out of smart meters on the state level, which you can't do in a lot of states?
So Rachel just had to step back. What I understand the strategy to be from state leaders is to push it, try to get it signed into law, and create a confrontation with the federal government over it. I think that the way the budget process works in DC, having gone through it with a decade, it's something that can be pushed aside infinitely unless there is a significant state interference in what they're trying to do. So that's how I understand the sort of battle lines right now, is that you want states either passing these bills and like getting them stopped by the governor or getting them signed into law to create a confrontation with the federal regulators over next steps.
Okay.
So just real quick, that's for geoengineering.
Correct.
But as far as the wireless issue with opting out of smart meters, like the
I've not seen any action.
Okay, we'll try and change that. Thank you, Justin.
Okay.
Totally open to it.
So James, I think you were next.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, for all that information. I'm looking on statefreedomcaucus.org. I believe that's your network.
It is.
And there's a map on there that shows 14 states in red. I trust that that's where you're active. I'm in California. I've got friends on this call who are in Tennessee, Florida, Texas, all around the country. How do we help you grow that to a 50-state network?
So the first thing is to have a group of legislators that want to put the jersey on, and that we agree are principled and aligned and ready to work as a voting bloc. We have had communications with Tennessee, with lawyers in Tennessee, Florida, and Texas, but what we haven't gotten to yet is a critical mass of legislators willing to take on the demands that come with the Freedom Caucus brand. Now, for those three states, the next elections will tell, right? We don't need a ton of people. We need 6 or 7 to start, and then our model has proven that we can grow both organically and through elections. California, all I would say is nobody's reached out to us. So I haven't undertaken any vetting of the Republicans in the chamber. If you have some people that you work with that think are good and might be interested, link them with me. Like I said, we put points on the board in Illinois and Maryland, and those are supermajority Democrat states. So we're not afraid to take on the challenge, and there's a great deal of utility in even changing the terms of a legislative debate, even if you can't get the outcome. So certainly open to it. But that's the model. Is we need a critical mass of interest people, and then be able to train them and put them in the fight with us at their back.
Okay, thank you for that, Justin. I'm informed, although I didn't see him appear in the waiting room, that Representative Chip Roy has appeared. Is that right, Charles?
It is. Congressman Roy, are you there to unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here.
That's
Okay.
fantastic. Let me
We'll have
remove
to interrupt the
Justin's
Q&A,
spotlight.
Justin. Sorry, everyone.
So, Congressman, how much time do you have with us?
Probably have 30 minutes or so, whatever y'all need. Now, I will warn you, I lost my voice this week, so it's a little light, but I can go for a little while.
Thank you.
Okay. So Justin, why don't you wrap up since you need to go and tell how folks can reach you?
I will, before I go, put my contact information, including myself, in the chat. And again, just want to reiterate, at the state level, on the federal level, MAHA needs to start fighting on the money, because that is where we get beat. It's where we get stymied. And our political opponents need to fear the coalition that we have every time they make a spending decision about how to regulate our health. I know that Representative Roy agrees with me. He's been a leader in Congress during my time there and continues to be. So you're in good hands as he tells you sort of what a mess Washington is and how he and the House Freedom Caucus are trying to navigate it. So Charles, thank you again for giving me the time.
You're welcome, Justin. Come back anytime. We'll love to work with you as we do with a lot of groups. And maybe we'll have you back for an update later in the year or next year at least, definitely.
Good. Thank you.
And Congressman Roy, so Justin's big message was, there's low-hanging fruit in the states with food ingredients, SNAP waivers. He was a little concerned that the vaccines were off the agenda a bit, against the wishes of the MAHA movement. And he was thankful, as we are, that RFK is there in working with Trump on MAHA. And that the budgets were a good source for future opportunities to get health freedom. I know you're on the budget committee, and let me show real quick on the screen from today's invitation why we're having you here, so you can see it as a reminder. Let me just hide those meeting controls. So in the agenda under your presentation, we have a campaign in support of your bill to expand patient empowerment with health savings accounts. And I've met with Michael Davis, your staffer, fantastic staffer. You really have a good staff. So whatever you want to say about that, I know in reconciliation, you're struggling to keep HSAs in the budget bill. You did co-sign during COVID our letter to FDA not to authorize the clot shot for toddlers. And our vaccine attorney, Greg Glazer, is on the call, and he wrote about 20 questions FDA could not answer. Questions which were so profound that Robert Malone substacked about that letter that you co-signed, and that got coverage in Epoch Times and also bicameral with Senator Cruz and Senator Johnson signing that letter. So, the fight over gene-modifying vaccine technology goes on. And then something you did, which really warmed our hearts, you tweeted a few months ago an openness to hearing RFK explain the danger of wireless radiation. And RFK already has started working with governors to kick the smartphones out of the schools so our kids can learn. So those are the three big areas where we really are excited about you. I know you've been focusing on the budget and Medicaid. That's certainly an important issue as well. So whatever you want to say, Mr. Roy, the floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the invitation to join you guys. And sorry that it's taken a little while to connect. We've got, constant work going on in the Hill where our votes kind of get messed up and our schedule gets messed up. And but I'm really deeply appreciative of what you guys have been out there doing for, I'm going to call it the healthcare freedom movement or the health freedom movement, because that's what I referred to it before MAHA, even though I'm fully supportive of what the president and Secretary Kennedy and Callie Means and everybody are trying to do on the Make America Healthy Again movement. But the reason I say that is because I was talking about health freedom before COVID and before where we are today. And the reason I'm going to focus on that for a second is I want to echo what Justin Ouimet was just talking about. He was doing it through the lens of the state the state Freedom Caucus network. But he's correct about the money. Follow the money. We can do what we want, and we need to do things on legislation and regulatory environment. We need to, take another look at vaccine liability, not just for COVID, not just for kids, but generally, right? Going all the way back to the 80s. There's a lot of things we need to do, but I think following the money is key. And that is why the current fight in the reconciliation, big, beautiful bill, the budget process is so important. Because if we can't ratchet back the aspects of Obamacare reflected in Medicaid expansion, if we can't do that, then I'm not sure what we can do. It's going to be really hard to get people to focus on Medicare. It's going to be really hard to have an expansive health savings account model that unwinds the regulatory framework and the regulatory morass that has been destroying any semblance of free market healthcare. So you are correct, and I appreciate the recognition for the legislation that I've put forward with the key support of my staff, who you rightly observe are the best in the business. That the first big piece of legislation that I introduced when I got to Congress was what I called the Healthcare Freedom Act, which reintroduced in this Congress is HR 317. And then there's the Personalized Care Act, which reintroduced in this Congress was HR 810. Those two bills are two sides of the same coin in terms of what they tried to do. The Healthcare Freedom Act being the more aggressive version, the Personalized Care Act being the slightly less aggressive. And the goal is obviously, for your intelligent group of listeners, they get it, but it's important to reiterate it, that the goal is to break the back of the monopoly that big insurance and big government has on our ability to choose care. And if you don't break that by using expansive health savings accounts that are tax advantaged for individuals at the same way they are for employers, and that employers would be able to get the same tax advantage for funding your health savings account as they do for providing quote unquote insurance. If you don't break the back of the system with that kind of a model, then you're never going to have freedom. You're never going to have the doctor of your choice. You're never going to be able to afford care. And in fact, you'll be mired and stuck in this system and unable to get out of it, where we now spend $25,000 a year for a family of four on basically highly regulated, health management. It's not really insurance. And it leaves you without the doctor of your choice. So that's that big bucket that I think is central. All of these efforts in Congress to mandate transparency, to mandate drug pricing, all of that is inserting the government into the market and destroying, I think, what levers people have to try to have a profitable product. And so, hang on, sorry, 1 second. And so I think it's critically important that we address that major issue right out of the gate. The second thing that you pointed out, obviously, is the vaccine front. Now, I have supported efforts to rewind the clock a bit on the overall vaccine liability issue. I think vaccine makers ought to face liability for the products they make. But a bill I introduced set out to at least just try to address it with respect to the COVID vaccines. And that is the basis of the Libel Act, which, as you all know, for this Congress is H.R. 1432. And again, that's focused very specifically on the COVID-19 so-called vaccines, the shots, I should really better call them. And then, look, overall, I'd tell you that we've got to fight this fight right now on the big bill, the big, beautiful bill, on the budget process for reconciliation to unwind Medicaid expansion, because right now we're corrupting the system and driving up the price of care because of that corrupted system. And the only way to fight that is to fight it in this process right now. Remember, Democrats passed Obamacare using reconciliation. Republicans aren't talking about unwinding Obamacare or replacing it with something better at this point. We can't even right now get Republicans united on just reforming the worst parts of the Medicaid expansion. So I would just suggest that we ought to do our part right now to address healthcare in this current package as a down payment on what we should do going forward. Now, with that, I'll open it up to questions and answers.
Okay. Well, thank you, Representative Roy. We really appreciate all of your efforts, and we've had some people who've kept their hands up, so maybe we start with them. Michael Levesque, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, Scott. Thank you. Yes, Representative Roy, I think your explanation of self-funding for medical things is so clear now. I didn't fully understand it because I've been talking to Charles Frohman about it, and I think it's really extremely important. My question is that I'm wondering if you're aware of the fact that the National Health Federation, the president, Scott Tips, as well as the Board of Governors have unanimously supported the beginning of the Medical Freedom Amendment. Now, Medical Freedom Amendment is very similar to what you're talking about when you talk about health freedom, because they're, of course, intimately intertwined. So I'm just wondering if you're familiar with it and whether or not you would consider supporting the amendment, since its goal, especially now, is relevant to protecting people from government mandates and emergency declarations and all of the government things, so that the relationship of the patient to the doctor is protected, and so that people have the right to say no and not be in turn penalized in any way. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I would just tell you that I'm not deeply familiar with that amendment you're talking about, but I certainly think that the basis of a future, well, let me take a step back. Everything that we're seeing unfold with the COVID situation that opened people's eyes, the increased scrutiny on the vaccine mandates over the years, other
we had
you there, Charles?
Yeah, you're starting to
Oh, sorry.
starting to lose you a bit.
Oh, sorry. Do you have me now?
I hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about that. What I was going to say is, in addition to the stuff Charles was mentioning earlier, about frequencies and cell phones and other things that we have concerns about. All of this stuff is a reflection of the power of government and the lack of control by individuals. And so everything we can do to re-empower a parent for a child, a patient, and a doctor, as opposed to the insurance bureaucrats and any of these entities over government, that's the direction we have to go. Because what we have now is arguably worse than single payer healthcare. And I never thought I would say that. And I'm not for single payer healthcare, but it's arguably worse to have corporate run, government mandated, non-market, highly regulated, quote unquote, healthcare, because you have no control and the crony capitalists run everything with government interference. So anyway, I'm in agreement. I appreciate your question. We got to pursue those ends.
I was just going to add something, just for your awareness, is that, the court system has gone hand in hand with the government and has even given egregious decisions that they said so themselves in relation to allowing forced vaccination of children for COVID-19 without parental consent. I just thought I'd make you aware of that as well.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And Representative Roy, let me just say, we will forward on to you information about our medical freedom amendment, our proposed medical freedom amendment, so that you become more familiar with it, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'm aware of it and I know about it. I just can't
Okay.
speak specifically to the language
Right.
in it because it's not in front of me.
Great. Yeah, probably Charles Froman did a great job of sending you information on it already. So what you didn't get off the internet or from our magazine. Okay, Elizabeth Duggan has been very patient, and I think she's up next.
Yes, I included a link in the chat earlier. It's a Substack from a particular person, and she's talking about this HHS Protect. It was a program that was being used during Operation Warp Speed. And it's actually a program in conjunction with Palantir that goes ahead and assigns people a risk threat. It's being used to target Americans. And I think that this needs to be looked into, and there needs to be a stop. It needs to not be able to be utilized, because it's another form of weaponization against the American people. And I do know for a fact, Plum Island, according to some federal contracts, is still active. There is a lot of things, people are looking only in one direction. They need to start looking in many directions, because gain of function is still happening. And that includes this new thing about this, what is it called? NHF, or this other new pandemic that they're trying to thrust upon all of us Americans all over again. And I'm quite upset that Robert Kennedy thinks it's okay to promote and support the MMR, because it's no different than the COVID. And COVID was gain of function. I have over 500 pages of research, and this is why I am extremely upset. Because years ago, I took a flu shot that was made to sign a waiver. I now have 2 autoimmune conditions. So I'm very passionate about this fight, I can tell you. And the other thing that disturbs me is a lot of senators and congressmen hide behind their gatekeepers. You try to contact somebody who's on a committee as yourself, Mr. Roy, and if you're not in their jurisdiction, their gatekeepers who take the phone calls won't let you speak to their representatives, won't let you share information. I have tried tirelessly. I've tried faxing this stuff directly to them because I can't get through to them. it's enough to blow your mind. It's so upsetting. You know, on one hand, is saying that they want our feedback, they want our help. Well, then make it easier for us, please. I encourage everyone to look at that information on this HHS Protect, because I have a friend who is an insurance agent for United Healthcare, and they are being used, to go ahead and get as much information, because, these insurance companies are only concerned about one thing, and that's profit.
Elizabeth, did you have a question for Chip?
Yeah, my question is why aren't they looking at some of these other areas? I mean, they're so focused on one thing, they don't realize, you're being distracted to pay attention to one thing, and there's several other things going on, and people are not aware, and there's still censorship going on as far as on X. I'm being limited. They put a temporary label on me because they don't want me. They don't want me speaking out. They don't want the information known. And I want to know, what are they doing to enforce the censorship?
Elizabeth, we need to move on. I can appreciate your passion in this, but we have a whole host of other people who need to ask a question. Everyone, please try to keep it short and sweet and simple. And we don't have Representative Roy here forever. We just have him for a short time.
So Charles, let me try to address Elizabeth's frustration, which I understand, with a little bit of hope and optimism. I have come to know Bobby Kennedy pretty well, along with other people working for the president, in trying to tackle what was a really, really corrupted system within not just HHS, but generally. And they've made significant progress, but they've had to focus a lot of their time and attention on reorganizing HHS, firing bureaucrats, reshaping the entirety of that morass, work with recently appointed, Marty McCary and others that have been, Jay Bhattacharya and others that are much more in our zip code of thought about the limit of the power of the government, the freedom of individuals, truth in research, a break between the ties of profit seeking and profit making and the decision makers in government. And they cannot make all those reforms all at once. They're making changes. We are seeking truth. I would like to see things go faster as well. My strongest advice is to not lose sight of the big fight. And the big fight is this, and forgive me for not being too scientific here. Follow the money. We cut off the money. We shrink the size of government. And then you minimize the games that they play while enriching a handful of people at these massive pharmaceutical, insurance, and hospital corporations. I yield back.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And, if you look in the dictionary and look up the word patience, you see Linda's picture there. So Linda, you're next after your long.
Oh, thank you. I had trouble to participate in your Federation Zoom meetings for months. Anyway, that it's easier to change the amendments of any constitution than to change the habits and the concept, the mentality for over 2 generations. Just a small example. I was teaching a couple of years ago in a clinical pharmacology master course, and I was taking away the cell phones from the students. The students complained and they stopped my class. They put me out of the course. Now, I work with MAHA, which is the best thing that ever happened in America. And of course, I work through a third person because I care for my life as I have a child with autism. Now, I want to address information to Chip Roy because he said, follow the money. The best friend of mine, working with the Federal Reserve, he found a program and a machine to follow the money, not only in the United States, but everywhere in the world, like $1 in India. He was able to find all the path from where it came there. And when he found money, US dollars, to a very bad, like to ISIS, for instance, then not only they stop, they close his huge business, they destroy him. Now he passed away. I mean, maybe he was killed. And he had just the time to give me all the machines that he was using for this thing to follow the money. And I can tell you more about him, about his name and all that. But it's really something so sad that if you try really to follow the money, you have to find who is the bad guy, and then is a risk. And at the National Health Federation Zoom, I will expect to see more than 2,000 participants than 98.
99.
Okay. For Roy, I will contact you to discuss more the follow the money and the way to do it, how difficult it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
So
go ahead.
no, go ahead, Charles. I mean, the short version is, from my standpoint, with respect to following the money, my starting place is the federal budget and the growth of the federal budget. It's like your children, right? I mean, when you just throw money at your children, you say, here's all the money you want, here's all the cars you want, and then you ask them to be disciplined and do the right thing, you're going to struggle. Now, I don't mean to make it so simple, guys, but we have one big fight in front of us right now, and we're trying to use the big, beautiful bill to force change. So that's point one. Point two, the monopoly powers that we've got in all areas of healthcare. Hospitals, insurance companies have gotten too much power. Even pharma with the patent system. We've got to break that competition and be able to get generics to market easier and those sorts of things. And I know that's not exactly what you're getting at, but I'm just saying that the fundamental problem with our whole system and what's going on with vaccines/shots is the amount of federal money and then the vaccine liability protection, which is an excuse to make a product without real liability protection, i.e. money. Therein lies the core problem. So that's why I got to focus on the budget in addition to just the healthcare policy.
Thank you for that. Nancy V., you are next.
Thank you. And thank you, Congressman Roy. I hope that I'll be able to contact you after the meeting sometime, maybe through Charles, who knows me quite well, because I have a lot of very important information. I've spent well over 9,000 hours now working in researching this topic and doing advocacy in safer use of technology and EMS disabled rights. There's a group of people, approximately 12% of the population, who are disabled with electromagnetic sensitivity. And we essentially have no medical freedom because we don't have safe safe medical access, and we virtually have no public access because although we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, that those laws are not enforced. Virtually nobody is accommodating us to make it safe, whether it's a wireless radiation in hospitals or ER or any place else. Title II, Title III entities just will say that it's too much of a financial or administrative burden to accommodate you. So I am severely disabled. This is a spectrum disorder, and medical professionals are generally not trained in this to either diagnose it, treat it, or prevent it. So I'm a medical professional. I'm also have undergraduate degrees in biology and botany. I'm a veterinarian, and over 40 years ago graduated from a human acupuncture college. So I have been treating people and animals holistically for 40 years. And that's the reason I'm still alive, because I was almost killed by wireless radiation. And I've been shut in my house by a cell tower for 5.5 years. That's why I'm telling you, I've become an expert on almost every aspect of this field in order to stay alive. And I work at the national level now with people who I was studying with. So I also understand the effects on animals and on plants. And I work with EMS disabled people across North America and some in Europe. I've had to learn disabled rights. I've had to learn disabled law. I've had to learn all kinds of policy. I don't really like politics, but I've been working in politics. And as Elizabeth said, it's extremely difficult to get past gatekeepers. And if you would be willing to receive information from me directly without gatekeepers, I mean, DC staffers just don't seem to get information to the senators and representatives. If you have Bobby Kennedy's ear, I would really like to get information to him. He knows a lot, but there's some, because I also work with CHD and Environmental Health Trust doing submissions. But as a EMS person trying to get accommodations, I have found out where there are weaknesses. We need building code changes so that that these entities are able to accommodate. We need the FCC guidelines updated. These 30-year-old guidelines are only thermal. They do not include any biological effects. They were court ordered.
Nancy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have a
Is my
whole
time
line of
already up,
people.
Scott? Can I just name a few things here?
Well, you've named a few things, and I'm sorry.
Well,
normally we are allowing 2 minutes per person, and you've gone on for quite a while, and it's actually impolite to those waiting.
Okay.
And if you have a
If I may-
specific
can I just-
question for, if you have a
Can I-
specific question for Representative
Well, I
Roy,
guess, is there some way that I can directly contact you or through Charles? Charles and I have been on DC staffer calls together, and we've worked together with the national call. He knows me well, and he respects my expertise and my experience. And I would really like to be able to help, and have you being open to this is really important. There's a number of people on the call who are also EMS. We need a representative.
yeah. And Nancy, there, you might check the chat line there. And
I've written
there are
into
some people, who want to connect with you about this. So look there. But I'm sorry, unless Representative Roy has an answer to your
Yes, please.
Representative Roy, do you have anything to say to what Nancy has said?
Well, I certainly appreciate her concern and her frustration. We're always happy to take in information to try to figure out what we can do, from our position. At this point, what we're trying to do is empower and rely upon the secretary, for whom we spent a great deal of time and effort to get confirmed, and work with his team and some people in the White House, who I think are the people who have the most direct ability to deal with some of the things that Nancy was responding to. But we're always happy to take in information. And Charles, I think my voice is about hit its limit, and we're at about the 30-minute mark. So happy to visit again sometime in the future. Appreciate all that your group has done, and look forward to chatting again.
Is it
Representative-
okay? Is it
Representative
okay if
Thank
I
you,
send
Congressman
information?
Roy.
Nancy,
And
no.
if I can
Representative
just close
Roy,
with you.
can you, Representative Roy, could you just be on long enough to take a question from Alexandria Butler? Would that be all right, or did you leave?
I can take one more question if you
Okay.
guys, if it can be pretty quick.
Yeah, let's make it quick, Alexandria, if you would, please.
Hey, hello, Chip Roy. I'm running for Congress here in Houston, and I receive a lot of questions regarding healthcare. Is there anything that can be done to break up the monopoly of Blue Cross Blue Shield here in Texas? And it seems that a lot of other Republican candidates and other conservative individuals, and not just candidates, but Congress people, don't really want to talk about that. Also, it just seems that everybody wants to just put a Band-Aid on Obamacare. So what say you?
Well, it's a good question. There are a number of different things that we need to do. Obviously, the state has some aspect to dealing with this from the standpoint of who's providing services here in Texas. But the best thing we could do to break the back of Blue Cross, Aetna, the big insurance providers, is to do some version of the tax policy change, which I've been fighting for in DC, on health savings accounts, so that you can open up and break down the tie from HSAs to high deductible plans. If you could free that up, you would then allow and open up the market, especially if we can build off of the short-term duration plans and make it to where there's an open market where you can actually have real insurance. Those things are the two policy changes that we need to put in place in DC. Then from a monopoly
Is that
standpoint,
in the big, beautiful bill? Because isn't it that federal employees over the age of 65 get HSAs, but it's not really expanded to those that are not federal employees? Is that possible to change that before Senate votes?
the HSA expansion in the House bill
Yes.
was beyond, it wasn't federal employees. It was an expansion of both the ability to use them, for example, direct primary care, so you can go straight to doctors. And it was an expansion in terms of the amount of money that you can save. It did not go far enough to do what I think we need to do, which is change the tax policy so that it's more expansive and more powerful. The Senate bill is currently watering down or removing those HSA provisions, and we're fighting that. And it's a part of about 20 things we're currently fighting the Senate over. It is why the big, beautiful bill is not anywhere close to passage at the moment, because for me, we have fundamental reforms that need to take place, including these healthcare policies. But I applaud you for making healthcare an issue in your race for Congress. I applaud you for having the courage to run.
I'm running against Al Green.
Well, God bless you. I encourage you to continue to do it and to focus on these issues. And we'll keep fighting in DC to try to break it loose and break the monopoly. But we gotta break the system that is creating the monopoly. So I appreciate you very much.
God bless. Thank you, Brother Roy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. And thank you, Representative Roy, for taking that last question. We really appreciate your time on our program.
Happy to do it, Charles. Thank you all, and thank your group very much. Y'all take care.
Thank you. Now, with Congressman Roy gone, how many of you who have your hands raised still would like to ask a question? And I want to remind everyone, because there's been a lot of back and forth in the chat box about ask a question. And we call it loosely Q&A, but I want to remind everyone that the name of of our Zoom sessions are, someone needs to be muted.
I muted Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. Some people need to remember the name of this is brainstorming session. We had this come up last year where someone was stating their viewpoints rather than asking a direct question. And it did seem inappropriate because we called it Q&A, but it's also a chance for you to express your opinion. We just ask in your viewpoint. We just ask that you do so concisely and keep in mind there are a whole bunch of people, probably a whole bunch of people behind you in line waiting to talk, and not all of them can stay on the program for the length of time it might take you to give a 10-minute dissertation. So please try to keep your questions and your comments, and they can be comments, to 2 minutes, if you would, please. All right. Charles, did you have anything you wanted to say right now?
For Thomas is raising his hand, are you unable to find the raise hand icon under the React tab? If you click the React tab, you don't see the raise hand icon?
I don't have a React tab. Wait a minute. Oh, hold on.
Under the Zoom controls.
It has to
the heart-shaped React tab.
Okay, finally found it. Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't see it before.
There you go.
It only appears when you put the cursor down at that bar level.
Since I'm up, can I go ahead and send my piece? It'll be quick.
Okay, go ahead.
My question to the audience is, in a brainstorming session here, is how do we get out of this digital ghetto that we're in? I have been tracking these unusual white fibrous clots. I'm the only person in the world tracking the prevalence and timing of these white fibrous clots that embalmers have been finding in their corpses the last 3 years. And they're finding them in my last worldwide survey in 27% of their corpses. This is not a rare phenomenon. These things are prevalent. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I was at the Tennessee Funeral Directors Association's annual convention. They invited me to come speak to them. 18 of the 28 embalmers there raised their hands, saying that they're indeed seeing these white fibrous clots. So we have it on video. Over this last week, on Monday, I was on Peter McCullough's Focal Points with Nick Holscher, did an interview with Nick. I was on Redacted News with Clayton Morris and his wife, Natalie, on Tuesday. Wednesday, I did an interview with John Campbell, the famous YouTuber. Tomorrow, I'll be doing one with Dr. Philip McMillan, another UK YouTuber. But I cannot get on big-time platforms like Tucker or Joe Rogan, Glenn Beck. They don't want to touch this issue. I think there may be a gag order from the Trump administration not to talk about this. I'm asking anybody in the audience to reflect on how they think we can get this into the eyes of America. Because unless America knows about these things, then they can't put pressure on our politics to make things happen.
Okay, thank you. That's excellent question and excellent comment. And I agree with you, Thomas, that they're much more prevalent than people even think about. So let's see what we can do through our contacts to help get you a session with either Joe Rogan or with Tucker Carlson. Okay, we should stay in contact. I assume
I'll put my email address in the chat.
Okay, that'd be super helpful. Thank you.
And I'll add, Scott, Thomas should join our Zoom next month, July 18th, with Greg Lay,
yes.
and a dishonorably discharged public health officer when we focus more on the vaccine issue. And Thomas, your input would be valuable there.
Sure would. Thank you.
And mark your calendar, noon Eastern, July 18th.
Yeah. So, Rick Martin, I think you're up next.
Okay, can you hear me?
We sure
I was
can.
trying to write down this gentleman's email here. I was just, one of the things I was curious about is how many of you actually was able to read the Fauci dossier? I'm with the Constitutional Law Group, and one of my team members is Dr. Dave Martin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not. I hope that you are. How many have read the Fauci dossier that we put out back in 2021? It was we did what was called on February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day, we did Operation for Love of Freedom, where we had people across the United States serve their county partners the Fauci dossier, which is 215 pages. And we've got all the evidence in there and all the dirty dealings that was done. It's not just Fauci. We've got all the names, all the research that has been done, and we've been trying to get this out there to the people. And one of the reasons we went to our county prosecutors is because we wanted to hit right there at home, because these corporate shutdowns were just tearing this country apart. And as I called it back in March of 2020, when we started the Reopen America tour, we called it a Trojan horse to bring in the economic collapse of America. And I don't know if many of you are familiar with who I am, but we've been fighting this nonstop. And we keep hearing about the China virus. How many people know that this was actually out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where they were getting busted for, thank you, I see Susan giving me the thumbs up. This actually came out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. This is the University of North Carolina. And then when they were getting busted, they moved it to Wuhan, which was also funded by Fauci. But yeah, I would definitely like to get more engaged. I don't want to take up any more time, but I will, in the chat, I'll leave my personal email address. And we are doing things right now. And just because the county prosecutors did not act on this back in 2022, doesn't mean we're done with this. We also were the ones that filed against 49 governors in March and April of 2020. And we did a mass tort against them because they were shutting down businesses without due process of law, which is totally unlawful. I'm a total constitutionalist. I've been studying law for over 30 years. I've got a nickname as the Judge Slayer because I've put more dirty judges, prosecutors, and rotten cops and CPS agents in prison than anybody else in this nation. And we're going to continue cleaning up this nation. And if anybody wants a good read, I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to go out there and get Fruit of the Poisonous Tree by Mel Stamper, 2006. You guys need to read that book. It'll get you up to par with what the Constitution's there for and start holding these public servants accountable to their oath of office. With that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Rick. And yes, we have heard of you. And it's Fruit of the Poisonous Tree. Who's the author?
The author is Mel Stamper. He was
Okay.
He was former law, CIA, all kinds of good stuff. But this guy knew his stuff, and I would suggest that everybody look for it. You can actually get it from me. I've got the video on it, being voice read, and the documents, so you can read, you can listen along and read along. And as I said, I will get you the Fauci dossier. Anything you guys need, come to me and I will get it to you, no charge.
Thank you, Rick, very much. And thanks for your comment. And frankly, thank you for all the work you've been doing for 30 years.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Same to you. And Jennifer, real quickly, if you have a comment or question.
This was going to be a question for Congressman Roy, but I don't know if there's anyone else on the call that could speak to this. Because he is a fiscal hawk, I was going to bring up the money issue because besides a health crisis, we have a massive debt crisis in this country. And I'm not a fan of the big, beautiful bill. I'm just hoping Ron Johnson and Rand Paul can do something, fix it in the Senate. But I heard yesterday that Medicare and Social Security will be bankrupt in 8 years. And it's my understanding that about 30% of our federal budget goes towards healthcare spending for Medicare and Medicaid. And so my question for Congressman Roy was going to be, is there any growing awareness in Congress, or are they even able to make the connection that the poisoning of Americans through the vaccines and the chemicals and the glyphosate and the geoengineering and the wireless radiation is bankrupting the country? There's no way to solve the debt crisis without solving the poisoning of America. So that was going to be my question. Is there any awareness? Because until we get to the root cause of what's causing the debt crisis, it just seems futile to just, rearrange the chairs on the Titanic with, how we're going to pay to fix it all. We're just talking about healthcare spending, whether the government does it or HSAs, or why don't we talk about how to not have people spend every day of their life going to doctors?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jennifer, with that one, because it all comes down to money. Even Trump's pause on the tariffs was caused because he was afraid he'd crash the economy. It wasn't because he's being generous to the other countries. And so I think we were so close to teetering into a collapse financially, economically, and a lot of people don't realize it. Charles, I don't know if you or if anyone else who's participating in this meeting has an answer for Jennifer.
I do indirectly. Before I do, Scott, if I might ask Thomas, Haviland, and Rick Martin to check their chat, I ask you to email me. Give me your email address because I want to talk to you guys later. Carla, do you want to unmute and give a budget answer as a longtime advisor to the Libertarian Party on the inability of politicians to say no to spending, since you've been doing it for decades?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I actually have a question for Rep. Roy. Unfortunately, the spending is, I agree, the absolute key. And as Charles knows, I spent years running tax cut ballot initiatives in Massachusetts and dealing in the belly of the beast. And spending is everything. And if we don't stop spending, anything we do will be outdone 2 or 10 to 1 by something bad they do because we left the money there or gave them more money. We must cut spending. So I wanted to ask Chip Roy, and since he's not here, anyone else who has some information on this, how specifically can we help to stop the expanded fund money into Medicaid and spending in general? He brought up this point twice, but I want to know, tell us what we can do right now or in the future, but especially right now.
I'll share one thing. Actually, I already shared it at the intro. Friends of ours at the Patient First Coalition, whose conference in DC next month, both Scott and I will be speaking at, and we'll be exhibiting with the help of Philip Haddad. They have a special project with politicians in an increasing number of states to root out millionaires from receiving Medicaid. Now, that's not a substantive fix, Carla, as you know, but it's low-hanging fruit to bring attention to the abuse of Medicaid. In one of our campaigns, I'll also add, to restore trust in health authorities, sort of a cynical title. I do have a line in that email to Congress that why are we duplicating Medicaid with Medicare when welfare and the police powers are ones that belong in the states? According to Justice Marshall's Ogden decisions, there's no federal power for healthcare in the Constitution. So as a libertarian, I might agree with you, Carla. Well, you tell me if you agree. I think at the very least, we need to devolve unconstitutional spending to the states, or at least we can cage the misspending that's going to occur wherever it is. So I would think a big long-term goal would be to devolve most of the stuff to the states. This won't happen, obviously, now.
That would help. But I think whenever people say leave it to the states, most things should not belong in the hands of government at all. And the states are going to jump at power just like the federal government will jump at power at every opportunity. So you never want to encourage them. They need no encouragement whatsoever. So the conversation should always be get the government out of this. We don't want 50 states doing Medicare and Medicaid and FDA and CDC and everything else that they would be inclined to do if they can possibly get away with it.
As a rebuttal, I agree with you in the long run, but in the short run, I do believe in Montesquieu to at least divide government so that it's more easily controlled on a local level. Because a lot of states aren't going to want to do those things as much as blue states. For FDA, for example, I agree to completely skip the devolution angle and just privatize it since Underwriters Laboratory already certifies quality, or even CDC, private clinics already study. So why have a CDC or NIH rather? Anyways, that's all I can say, Scott.
Okay, well, that's, go ahead. Did you have more?
Carla, did you have another question to ask?
We should move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carla. And actually, I really agree with what you have to say on that. But at the same time, we want to devolve power as close to the individual as we can, and so maybe we work on both aspects if we can, if that's possible. Okay, Ron, you've been super patient. I think I may have to change it. Your picture is in the dictionary next to the word patience, not Linda's. Go ahead.
Hey, I want everyone to notice Alexandria Butler that was on this call that's running in Congress. And she said that she asked why that only government employees can have HSAs after the age of 65. Well, everyone knows that in the bill, the big beautiful bill, you can only have Medicare Part A. If you're over 65 and you only have Medicare Part A, you're a government employee. Alexandria was absolutely right and Chip Roy was wrong. And I think that the first time I ever met Chip Roy, he was helping DeSantis run for president in Iowa. And I said, SMU, the teachers have to pay $300 a month for their health insurance until they get cancer. And then when they get cancer, their premiums escalate to $3,000 a month on Cobra. Chip Roy looks at me and says, well, when he had Cobra, it was $1,800 a month in 2011. It's happened to himself and he still can't see it. What big insurance does is they want the taxpayers to pay 30 grand a year or 40 grand a year, like the city of Orlando employees, 40 grand a year. And then when they get cancer, federal law switches the entire bill over to the employee who has no income, right? They're too sick to work. So this gives the insurance industry the legal right to terminate their insurance and laugh all the way to the bank. It's been happening since World War II. After 80 years, you would think Chip Roy would be smart enough to figure it out. I'm glad Alexandria Butler, we have someone running for Congress in Texas who does have a clue.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. I'm glad to see you have an opinion on the subject.
Well, I'm licensed coast to coast. It's the federal law. Federal law makes employers have insurance on employees. Then when they get so sick they can't work with ovarian cancer, federal law shifts the entire bill over to the employee. They have no income. How can they pay 40 grand a year? This gives Blue Cross Blue Shield the right to terminate their insurance and their financial responsibilities. That's health insurance in the United States.
Well, in the Biden days, what they would do is they'd cross the border and then get coyotes to smuggle them back across the border so they could get free health care from the U.S. government and state governments. That's what I'd do in California if you...
Well, that's not an answer. Here we've had this for 80 years.
Where's your sense of humor, Ron? Where's your sense of humor?
Every state.
Where's your sense of humor?
I don't think it's very. What do you think? 10 million people have had their insurance terminated with cancer since World War II? 10 million?
Yeah. It's
I know one person being terminated is a tragedy. 10 million is a statistic.
yeah,
I don't
we've
have
heard
much
that. We've
humor
heard that
about it.
line. Yeah. Thank you. Susan, you're next. Susan Clark, you are next.
I got unmuted. Thank you. I was getting unmuted. So one of the things that most people don't know, because this happened a long time ago in 1990-91, was that the IEEE, the Institute for Electronic and Electrical Engineers, met with the ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute, they were assigned to create a new public guideline for exposure to electromagnetic, well, specifically radio frequency and microwave radiation. And when they met, they didn't really have anyone from the public health sector, the medical sector, the biological sector. It was all engineers, essentially, and a large group, I would add, but people who didn't have expertise in the right area. And so what happened was that they decided that they just wanted to have the guideline for public exposure be actually extremely high. They wanted to accommodate the industry so the industry could build out and do all sorts of things that it wanted to do. That was the real purpose. Now, a guideline is not a standard. We don't have a standard in the United States, never have had one. But what they did in this process, in order to, I would say, at this point, appear as if they were doing something scientific, is that they reviewed over 10,000 studies, according to the chair of the committee, Dr. John Osipchuk, PhD, who worked for what? He worked his entire career for weapons manufacturer Raytheon. He was one of the guys involved way back in the 70s in the development of the microwave oven. He's a guy I knew. I used to debate him in public all the time, and I always won. Here's why. When that committee was doing its process, and I can show you, I've got the charts and graphs on this, they decided to choose 120 studies to prove their point that here is the hazard threshold, meaning above the line, you might see some bioeffects. Below the line, you're not going to see bioeffects. Well, it turns out that of the 120 studies they chose, 15 of them actually showed adverse effects below that line. And so the committee would say, well, don't worry about it anyway, because we built in a 10% factor so that we're only going to put the guideline at 10% of the hazard threshold. Now, normally in chemistry and material science and toxicology, you go down like 10,000 times less, not just 10 times less, but they went 10 times less. But guess what? In those 120 studies, 3 of those studies actually did show adverse effects at less than 10%. Right there, that proves that they engaged in scientific fraud in the production of that guideline. Okay, now I've written this up elsewhere and I've submitted it online, in public and so on. It's on the public record. CHD, Children's Health Defense, Environmental Health Trust, EHT, they did not care about this at all when they did their lawsuit against FCC. They didn't care about this important fact of scientific fraud. Now, what happened was FCC came back later. Now, by the way, FCC, when it was being sued in 2000, the judges, the 3 court judges in New York, they said to FCC attorneys, do you, FCC, have any authority over health? And the FCC attorneys were absolutely silent. They would not answer. So the court asked, well, do you have any expertise in health? And again, the FCC attorneys just held their tongue, silence, complete silence. So FCC doesn't have that authority. And yet FCC came back in 1996 and said, oh, we reviewed the literature and we decided that the guidelines just going to stay the same. Well, in fact, they can't show anything. They didn't do any literature review at all. There was no scientific review, meaning, again, scientific fraud. But did CHD or EHT listen? No. They actually went along with what FCC said. Oh, FCC reviewed FCC created a new guideline in 1996. It hasn't been revised since then. They lied. And because they lied, we're still in this problem of being exposed to more and more and more and more radiation every single day of our lives. Because our own people lied on the record and did not say, well, it's clear as day, which is that FCC committed scientific fraud, as did its original in 1991, its original guideline setting people. So thank you for taking listening so long, but I hope it's of use to you. Thank you.
It is, Susan. Thank you for that. You always have such good comments to make, both in the chat line and here verbally. So thank you. Charles Ford, I think you were next.
Yes, thank you. I want to make a brief comment, and then on two things. Number one, we had a congressman on the line today, and the first two or three people that were on there just were an absolute disgrace and embarrassed all the rest of us terribly. And if I was that congressman, I would never come back because, quite frankly, based off what they were saying, we're just a bunch of tinfoil hats. And what's even more regrettable is that some very good people were right behind them that would have had great exchanges that we were unable to have because we had these self-imposed narcissistic fools in front of them. So I just wanted to make that comment. Number two, the man that was talking about SMU and the COBRA and all of that, here's the problem. Somebody's got to pay that bill, $40,000 a year. He can no longer work at SMU. SMU says, okay, you're disabled. We're going to have you resign. We're going to, end our employment relationship. SMU then takes their whole cost and dumps it on the employee. The problem isn't that the poor old employee's got that $40,000 bill. The problem is that that bill exists in the first place. Now you understand why tuition at SMU is $200,000 a year. I just wanted to make that point. And Scott, thank you. But I would ask you in the future, when somebody gets on there and all they want to do is ramble and ramble and ramble, and we have a significant representative on the phone, cut them off mid-sentence and go to somebody that can be reasonable and prudent. And I'm going to put that one on you. And thank you.
Good advice. Thanks, Charles. Diane, you're next. Diane Zielinski.
Let me get my my settings right. There we go. I just wanted to, I put it in the chat too for Linda and for anyone else that is interested in protecting themselves from this onslaught of EMF. I use this, I've got it on right now, this pendant from Norbert Hauser. It's quantum physics that he used to invent these protectionary devices. I don't know whether Linda has tried it or not. It's been tested at the BISA Institute and it's supposed to be quite effective. He was pretty much forced to invent something for his grandson that was an infant that was being affected poorly. He was getting psoriasis and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And he invented all these different improve your health. That's his website. .org. He improved all these wonderful quantum physics gadgets and protectionary devices. So I just wanted to recommend that she try that if she hadn't.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion, Diane. Correct. Oh, are you done?
Yeah, he has everything made in Germany. That's the one thing I forgot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Greg, our chairman of the board for National Health Federation, is Greg Cunyon, and he's next.
Briefly, I just wanted to say, in response to what Thomas was saying regarding clotting, clotting is nothing new. I know a lot of people are getting excited about it with regards to the vaccines, but in the 1980s, that's when my dad started doing full spectrum clotting assessment on all of his patients, looking at homocysteine, fibrinogen, lipoprotein A, factors 2, 5, 7, small dense LDL, and it was breakthrough understanding of what was really going on. People should be aware of the fact that especially if you have vascular disease or cardiovascular disease or cancer in your family history, good idea to run a clotting panel. Because when you lower blood flow due to hypercoagulation, as a default, you become malnourished. Okay, you can't deliver nutrients to the cells. The cell activity stops, the cells die. Inflammatory conditions get worse. You're in jeopardy. So I just wanted to point that out. It's nice that people are starting to mention it now, but this is out there. And I put in some things in the chat about dealing with ischemia, these conditions, and some things to be aware of.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for that. Lonnie, you're next. Asked to unmute.
Sorry about that. Thank
That's
you.
okay. Thank you. Please go
To be
ahead.
brief, I put it in the chat. There's a new product that was approved by the FDA and the EPA called Appeal that is allowed on organic products to be put on organic products with no labeling. That to me is terrifying because I only eat organic and non-GMO. And for those of you who care about your health and eat clean, this product is very scary. It's was developed by Bill Gates, and I'm not sure what we can do about it. I've already written to the FDA, but I just wanted to make you all aware in case you want to do anything about it.
Yeah, thank you, Lonnie. In fact, actually, in a not so recent issue of Health Freedom News, our journal that the National Health Federation publishes quarterly, we had an article on Appeal. So you might go to our website and look that up. And if you have something to expand upon that, I would suggest that if you're a writer, that you write something to build on that, because you're right, this needs to be known by the public. So go to our website and put in the search engine Appeal, and you'll probably find that article posted there. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Dwayne, I think you are.
Yes, I'm Dwayne Leet,
guy.
Dr. Dwayne Leet.
Yeah, okay.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Got it? Yeah, I'm Dr. Dwayne Leet. I've been very active in the South Carolina. I write about 40 bills a year regarding healthcare issues and education issues related to healthcare. And what I want to say are two things. First, the road to health independence, I believe, is an honest, informed consent for every pharmaceutical and every medical procedure. And you can develop that informed consent to be instantaneous and adapted to the patient. At the time the pharmaceutical or the medical procedure is suggested by the physician or the healthcare provider. I've provided both adult and child formats for how this is developed, and I have a framework on my Substack, and I'm educating through the Substack on the technology and the organization that has to control that process. And also you have to rewrite some state law, and I've rewritten South Carolina's entire health state law to be consistent with providing healthcare freedom through an honest, informed consent process. I've demonstrated this for the COVID-19 countermeasure on the Substack, how it works, and I'm looking for other folks that might be interested in developing this technology and infrastructure, which has to happen at both the management level for the infrastructure and at the state level to get all the crud out of the state health laws. So that's my first point. And my second point is that we need to get all the pharma ads off media, because as long as the pharma is spending all this money on the media is going to be supporting the pharmas.
Excellent point, Dr. Dwayne. We really need to get to the root of that evil and get them off TV, their ads off TV. I wanted to ask you, though, since you're so involved in South Carolina, right? In South Carolina with medical freedom and health freedom bills, maybe you could help us at NHF push the medical freedom amendment through your representatives there in South Carolina. I'd invite you.
I wrote that.
I would invite you to talk. Well, maybe you didn't write the one that we have, but I'd invite you to talk with our NHF board member, Michael Levesque, directly, if you wouldn't mind giving us your contact. We may have your contact information. I'm not sure, but if you wouldn't mind in the chat line, I'd like to put the two of you in touch. So And maybe you have some good suggestions for our existing proposed amendment.
Yes. It was mentioned, and it's important to understand that you can't get everything because of the control that the pharmaceutical companies and the healthcare organizations have on the legislatures. You can't get everything you want in one bill.
Yeah, we're aware of that, and we're aware it's a long shot on the amendment. But in the process, even were we to fail, which I don't think we will ultimately, but even if we were to fail, we'd have educated millions of people on the benefits of health freedom and a medical freedom amendment. Anyway, we need to go. We have some other people. I just wanted to get you to please put in the chat line your contact information so I can share it with Michael Levesque. I don't know if he's still on this call or not. Anyway, thank you very much. Let's turn to Liz Barris and ask her to go speak next. Thank you for all you've done, Dr. DeWine.
Okay, hi. Am I clear or am I very fuzzy sounding?
Well, at first it was a little weird, but then you got normal.
Oh, great. Okay, because you guys are fuzzy. This is a new used computer I have because I don't do Zoom on my other computer because it's CCP owned and operated, and I don't want them getting my info. Just throwing that out there. But I'm really glad that you guys are doing this. I wasn't sure if this was appropriate, so I came on late to the meeting as an issue that, I've been trying to help get going. It was brought up and I didn't know how to raise my hand, but anyway, I now know how. So the banks are going to be seizing everybody's assets and cash, and that's coming up. They're filing for insolvency. And I put just now in the chat, I have a newsletter where I sent to people on my list, but that's only, a few thousand people. We really need, and it's a state by state issue. They're going to seize cash and assets, and they've changed the UCC codes, Uniform Commercial Codes, in order to enable this. And they also got legislation in to solidify that RICO heist that they're about to do. But in this link, we have all the UCC code information to change it back. We have everything you need: attorneys, expert witnesses, everything you need to take action in your state. This cannot be done, according to David Webb, who made the great taking. This can't be done federally. So that's why I wasn't sure if this was even appropriate to bring up, but I am, since other people brought up the financial aspect of things. So it's important this is happening, and the amount of time we have to take action, I would say, is limited to maybe a few months. By October, this could actually go ahead and happen. It may not happen in October, but that's what people are, people that are knowledgeable about this, and that's also my opinion, although I don't consider myself an expert. I'm just helping, get this organized or just putting the word out there. So
thank you, Liz, for that.
Sure.
And you came across very clear. Okay, so the next one, John, at long last, you've been a stalwart regular at our events. Please speak your piece.
Thank you, Scott. I was just hearing Greg talk, and Greg, we have to understand that the clots that I believe his name was Thomas was showing us are not blood clots. They're actually a different material. And actually, when you put those clots, that white material underneath a microscope, they actually look like reptilian skin.
No, I understand that. I just was trying to make the point that those people who seem to be at greater risk for vaccine-related events like this have a proclivity towards clotting. One of the early reports that I had reported on was, for example, homocysteine as a major marker for risk associated with COVID in general. My only point is just the fact that clotting is a major issue. It's the number one killer that we deal with regards to heart attack and stroke.
Well, heart attack and stroke, yeah. But
that's all I'm trying to say is that it's something, as we're having the discussion now about clotting, just be conscious of the fact that about 60% of the population suffers from overactive clotting activity, and they have no idea that it's happening. When they did the original studies, for example, with Chambers and McGregor, they literally gave their subjects the equivalent of 2 steaks, the amount of methionine in 2 steaks. 4 hours later, they had, these guys come back. These were healthy college kids. The average healthy male in the group had a reduction in 6%. So I'm just trying to make people aware of the fact that clotting is something that should be on your radar anyway. A lot of people don't even know that they have this going on. And even after they have a fatal event and a full occlusion, they have no idea that, no one's checking. And this radically changed our practice, in the early 80s. We went from just nutrition and pollution, and it was eye-opening to see the proclivity of this, especially with sick patients, people who are coming in with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. I mean, all of these people, about 95% of those people and depression, all suffered from this low blood flow syndrome.
Right.
That's all I was trying to say.
I think what Tom was trying to get across is the fact that you have this new material that's being created by this bioweapon that has never been seen by anyone before. No doctor, no mortician has ever seen this type of material in the arteries before, where you have this white material that literally, I've seen it under a microscope. It actually looks like reptilian skin. That's what it looks like.
No, I understand.
It's not the occlusions that we normally look for in terms of people. I mean, you and I know this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just that we're dealing with a totally different.
I understand that, and as someone who's never been vaccinated, obviously I'm with you. I hear you.
Okay, sounds good, man. All right. That's why I want to bring forth. That's all.
Can I say one other thing real quick? The fellow who was talking about insurance and COBRA, I just want to point out the whole thing is a bit of a scam anyway, in so much as you get this insurance, and what do you actually get? I mean, if I certainly would not go and have conventional cancer therapy. I would say save your money and find somebody who's a real healer, and that's why I tell people.
First of all, conventional cancer therapy, as you and I well know, most people on this call, kills people. It doesn't heal anybody. It doesn't heal anybody, and it's very, very expensive to be put to death. My dad went through the conventional. He didn't want to follow my protocols, and he died a horrible death because he was chemo to death. And the majority of people end up dying from chemotherapy. That's why they die.
That's why I say it's very important with the Medical Freedom Amendment. We have got to be able to create at least a playing field where preventive medical specialists, orthomolecular physicians, integrative physicians can compete and can actually survive.
Amen.
And I think that these guys are scared to death to allow medical payers to provide, funding for alternative physicians because they know what the end result's going to be. People are not going to go into conventional therapy.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you
for making that comment. Brigida Lauren is next, and she's also a member of our NHF Board of Governors. Brigida?
Yes, let me just turn on all my things here that I keep off because I have very noisy children. I heard the lady mention about the appeal. I made a little note in the chat box in case I didn't get a chance to voice my opinion or make it known that the Produce Max product that is being used in the produce water mist, they call it, in the grocery stores like Sprouts here on the West Coast, contain a sterility agent. I believe it's another Gates thing. And our organic produce is not safe because it's being sprayed left, right, and center from every corner.
And you're saying it's a sterility drug?
Yeah, it's called, I don't remember the name of the company, but if you look up the name Produce Max, one word, double X at the end, then you can find out the chemical that's inside. It left the top of my head right now. And it is a sterility agent. It's a pretty bad one.
Okay.
And they're using it in the so-called water mist when they mist all of the fresh produce that's not packaged. In a lot of stores. At Sprouts, they admit to it and tell me that it's FDA approved, and they get my rolling eyes. And Whole Foods will not admit to it. I don't know, so I don't know. And where were we the other day, girls? Pavilions, no. Ralph's, and they will not admit to it either, so I don't know about those. But there is a list somewhere that lists most of the stores that do it, but some will not admit to it.
Yeah, because like a lot of people, I think I always assumed it was just water being sprayed.
No, so I once when I was at Sprouts, I said, well, could you please go and grab me some produce from your back so that it has not been sitting in this mist? And he said, oh, it doesn't matter. We wash it in the same stuff before we put it out. So it doesn't matter. I only buy produce at stores that is already packaged in bags. That way I know the mist hasn't gone through.
Okay, thank you for that. Did you have anything else to add, Brigitte?
No, that was it. Short and brief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think I saw in the chat line that Erin McDowell had wanted to say something, but she couldn't find the button to raise her hand, which kind of surprised me because you've raised your hand in the past. Erin, are you there? Would you like to make a comment or ask a question of someone?
Thanks, Scott. Yes. So I was curious about the clotting. So to John, and I see Susan mentioned something in the chat, which was wanted to ask about the correlation with the microwave radiation, the increase in the wireless around us. Also, if with Greg, who was talking about the clotting as well. So the Cleveland Clinic in Mentor, Ohio, use Verizon money to embed 5G from the ground up as a test bed hospital for across the country. What's concerning is where is the informed consent for anybody who walks into that hospital if clotting is an adverse effect from the amount of wireless. Obviously, anyone EMR injured, such as myself and other people, on this call as well, and not on this call. What's an approach? What are we? I guess it's part comment, part opinion, part personal experience, and part any ideas for how we can move forward with these hospitals and patients and visitors and informed consent and bringing in wireless this way, because don't we have a right to informed consent?
Who made excellent series of questions there, or ultimate question there. This is where we bring in our big guns, Greg Glazer. He's probably dying to answer this question. Greg, do you want to tap in?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, it was essentially about informed consent and the lack of informed consent in the hospitals and how we deal with that situation and how we can get the hospitals to stop putting people through procedures and giving them drugs and the like without informed consent.
Well, may I also add, it has to do too, Greg, with the wireless. For example, the Mentor Hospital, Cleveland Clinic, Mentor, Ohio, is embedded with 5G from the ground up. They accepted Verizon money, undisclosed amount. So for people like myself and other people on this call and elsewhere who are EMR injured, how do we deal with this? And how do we, there is informed consent the minute you set foot into that hospital, which is supposed to be a place, well, technically a place of healing, but procedures. How is this addressed? How is the informed aspect addressed?
Can I speak to that?
Yes,
sure.
Thank you.
This is Dwayne Leet again. I was CIO of a hospital system here in South Carolina. And so I know how the insides of the hospital work, and I'll give you an example. I had to have some imaging done. I got in an informed consent. They stripped me, they got me there, and then they told me that I had to have had to have something injected into my body first. And I said, I haven't seen an informed consent on that. And so the lady who was with me, I refused to take it until she got me an informed consent. And by the way, in most medical procedures, you never get an informed consent. They'll tell you about it, but they won't write it down. And so I wrote a letter to the quality person there saying I had not had an informed consent. This was against my rights. And so the next time I went to there for an imaging, I actually got an informed consent before I could make the imaging appointment. And so they changed it because I complained about it. So the whole idea is you have to work with whatever your provider is, and you have to request, you have to insist. And I have some procedures coming up. You have to insist at the time that they tell you you're going to have something. You have to insist on all the informed consents. And that includes if there's radiation that you're concerned about, you raise that issue and you require them to write that or go to someplace else. That's what works.
Okay, I appreciate that and thank you. And I just wanted to ask though, for just walking into a facility, okay, such as the Mentor Hospital Clinic, just walking into that facility, it is embedded with 5G from the ground up. All of the employees who are working there are being exposed. They all carry cell phones, they're all turned on. Any patient who goes in there who is unaware of the wireless risks, which many people are because there is no dissemination of information, as we know it's being suppressed, are being exposed. There's been no informed consent from the get-go. This is my point. So just, I understand about a procedure and I understand informed consent is often given to protect the hospital and the doctors as well. Let's be honest about this in many cases. Also, just a word of caution too, check your charts to see what kind of informed consent you gave. I just recently realized I found something in my record that said I gave lifetime consent to the Cleveland Clinic, which I don't recall doing. So I am in the process of talking to an ombudsman about that and getting that removed immediately at the time of each procedure so that you understand in that moment what is going on. But I'm speaking specifically, let me be clear, to the wireless that's being embedded from the ground up. It's a test bed, and it was written up in an article as being a test bed for hospitals across the country that Verizon with the agreement of the Cleveland Clinic did this. So how do people like many of us on this call who are EMR injured, and also people who are unaware walking into a hospital, extended hospital stay with all of this wireless around them, maybe they come in perfectly healthy in that regard, in the regard of not having been wireless injured just yet, but they may leave with some symptoms. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it would happen that quickly. I had an acute onset, so I do think it happens very quickly, dose dependent. I do think that can happen. Some people are more chronic is how they come to this. But at any rate, Greg Glazer, could you address the consent when you walk into a building like a hospital that is loaded with it by design and not telling people about it? Thank you.
Sure. These are unknown risks. And we're trying to put this patch of informed consent on a gaping, massive hole or erupting volcano. It just doesn't work. And we all kind of know it, that you're never really going to be informed unless you have control group data. But how would you have control group data on RF? You would have to have a society living outside of a system like that. And I hope that we can achieve that. That would be amazing. But currently, pharma and industry rig the system of informed consent. You know, they'll say things like, we'll give you a VIS, and now you're, quote, informed about vaccination. And maybe what we really need to do is just step outside of the box and realize that informed consent is a naturally limited ideal. And what we're really seeking, what people really want, is personal responsibility. And we're entering an era of cheap information, meaning AI can churn out more information in real time than you could even read. And so be careful what you wish for when you say, oh, I want informed consent. AI will be happy to give you a book of information. that you wouldn't even read anyway. So there's really never going to be any substitute for personal responsibility and genuine control groups, which looks like our people living healthy and free. Thank you.
Okay,
If I
thank
may
you.
respond to
Thank
that
you,
very
Greg.
quickly. May I respond to that very quickly?
Yes, please. Go ahead, Susan.
Because this is my area of expertise, radiofrequency, microwave radiation, bioeffects. And we do have controlled studies of humans with radiofrequency, microwave radiation. We have the Lumina study, 25,000 some studies. Okay, we have animal studies. We don't need more studies. It's not an unknown risk. It's not an unknown. This is an established science. It's more established than lead, pesticides, and cigarettes from the perspective of the number of studies. And the number of studies is criterion toward establishment of an area of science. So from a public health science perspective, my background is Harvard School of Public Health. This is an established science. So no, it's not an unknown, and it's not a mere risk, okay, because there is harm in every case. Now, back in 1997, when the system, this was late 1997, and the whole new PCS system was turned on in Boston. Baptist Hospital in particular in Boston had a cardiac ward where, as I said in my chat there, people were actually able to detect when somebody came on the ward with a cell phone that was on, and they would complain about it, right? Somebody's walking in the ward with a cell phone. That's how distinct it was, because it was a completely different kind of exposure than people had been exposed to before. It was approximately 1.8 to 2 gigahertz at that point. And so it was a new kind of exposure. Moreover, in the hospitals, the MRI rooms were not yet shielded. Okay, so I personally knew the guy who had to come into all the hospitals in Boston and completely re-shield the MRI rooms because they were no longer, if you will, safe from this new PCR system that was interfering with the MRIs, such that they were just almost dysfunctional. They were giving wrong readings. Yeah. So he had to completely do a whole new shielding system. Meanwhile, everyone is sort of getting adjusted to, accustomed to, or whatever, this kind of new radiation who could go through that adjustment period. That doesn't mean adjustment is not adaptation from an evolutionary standpoint. Adjustment means that something is going on in the body that is probably adverse physiologically in order to allow the person to continue to function in a seemingly normal way in society. It doesn't mean that it's not an adverse reaction. It is. The adjustment itself is. So yes, we have these studies. That's why we don't have to do more epidemiology on this. And you're right, we don't have a controlled capacity to do that anymore outside of a Faraday cage, such as exists at the former biophysics lab at Temple University in Philadelphia. Can't do that, right, in just a normal environment. But what we know is enough to say that where a hospital typically has not just one Wi-Fi system, usually 2 or more, and then everybody's using their cell phones besides, well, you're harming the patients, particularly in the cardiac ward, if in their Johnny it has a pocket where you put a monitoring device that itself has a functioning antenna that works 24/7. You're definitely harming the patient. There's no question about it. Thank you.
And Scott, if I might add, in chat, I put NHF's state wireless radiation email that itemizes 6 or so bills you can encourage your state politicians to introduce. One of which recommendations includes those recommendations from the New Hampshire study on wireless radiation mitigation. And one of those recommendations was wireless-free hospitals, libraries, schools, parks, and other areas people can go to escape the wireless mesh. So if that interests you, send an email to your state politicians, try to get a meeting with them. And we'll, of course, have wireless-specific shows here occasionally. We just had Scott McCullough on a couple months ago. Odette and I have presented. Susan Clark has presented. So we will, of course, return to the wireless issue every few months.
Yeah. Thank you, Charles, for that. I don't see any other hands raised, and we're really at the end of the time, aren't we, Charles?
We are, and we're over time, but I think it's a blessing to have a monthly forum to brainstorm on health freedom because we know it's a huge issue, and we're all frustrated at the pace of it and which issue is prioritized over others. But please bookmark or mark on your calendar the third Friday every month for noon Eastern, because you'll find this a good forum for you to express yourself. And it's a feedback loop for what we lobby in Congress. Frankly, we're focused on the wireless issue right now because it presents the greatest danger. While people were focused rightly during COVID on vaccines, telecom has deployed antennas outside our bedrooms, schools, and parks, and we lost last Congress on the defense law that included spectrum auctions, which are going to load existing towers with more antennas. We lost on the parks bill, which is going to flood our parks with antennas. We're still working on that. We might have some wiggle room there to slow that down. The farm bill's coming back. So, we had to sort of play defense on the greatest threats that exist right now. So folks are really boning up on the wireless issue. It has so many implications through spying, behavior coercion, and of course, frying us specifically with the health issue. But we'll return to the vaccine issue next month, July 18th in Eastern, with Greg Glazer, who just spoke. We do have a bill that's pending introduction to establish a federal right to decline vaccines, and it would help with the control group gap in the science around vaccines. And we'll be having a soldier. Let's see, Liz, let's help you mute yourself so you don't cause this distraction. And so please come back next month. We're booked several months out. And please share the link with others to get more people on here. Linda said she wants 2,000 people here. I think having 100 was a pretty good accomplishment for us compared to our average, which isn't that. So we are slowly building. We're not promoted by the algorithm, I can tell you that, given the topics that we touch here. So that's all I got to say, Scott. Please come back next month and please support our work.
Yeah, thank you, Charles, for that well said information. And I want to encourage all of you to, if you aren't on our email list, you need to go to our homepage, www.thenhf.com, and sign up there. We can't sign you up ourselves for you. You have to do it yourself and go to our website and sign up. But Charles is absolutely right. It would be great to have all of you on our third Friday of the month brainstorming Zoom sessions. We maxed out on this one. About 10 people who came afterwards couldn't get on. So we'll probably expand that participant capacity for the future. But we appreciate all of you who are here. Please support our work. As much as we have Charles as our representative and our lobbyist in DC and elsewhere, and he's been doing a fabulous job, he's not paid enough. We need to, frankly, for all the work that he does, we need to get more donations, more memberships, so we can actually pay him what he's worth. So I'd encourage you, and he's been doing such a good job getting the message out there and talking with our congressional critters and representatives, and we need your support. So please go to thenhf.com, thenhf.com, and sign up as a member, make a donation, or at the very least, just sign on our email list. And I want to thank all of you for being here and for your comments. You really make this a great Zoom meeting. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you all.
One more thing, Scott,
Sure.
if I might. In chat, I also put the link for the DC event next month, at which Scott and I both will be speaking, and at which Philip Haddad, who can say hi, will be exhibiting for NHF. We do need to show up in DC. It's an expense, it's a hassle. But as Benjamin Franklin said to the passerby who asked what kind of government America had gotten from the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin answered, "A republic if you can keep it." that answer implies a responsibility to be involved and not to shirk your personal responsibility, as Greg mentioned. So if you can join us July 23rd to 25th to attend, exhibit, go to the lobby day. We do need to pressure Congress, which was the subject of today. Congress is not moving. They need to hear and feel our pressure for health freedom in our republic. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles, and thank you all. And we'll see you in a month.